Сегодня спецвыпуск, разборки с американской корпорацией. И с нами Хазбик, и он точно разрулит.
Я ухо порву, сказал даже мужчине на улице.
Очень интересную историю его партнерами из США. Вы это должны знать.
Литл, Сизарс, Пицца, третья по масштабам сеть пиццерий в мире. Мы плотно взаимодействовали с американской стороной.
Попали с радаром.
Просто пропали с радаром. Проблему мы очерчиваем, we are sorry, но решение мы не предлагаем. Порядка $3,5 миллионов. We are very sorry, случился форс-мажор. Классные разборки в лондонском Верховном суде.
Dear friends, I welcome you. Today is a special edition. We'll be talking to one of our respondents who has already been interviewed. He told me a very interesting story after the interview about his partners in the USA, which impressed me a lot. Despite the circumstances happening in our country right now, I believe you should know about it. I have invited him to the studio so today to listen to him, ask questions and shed some light on the situation so that other franchisees and entrepreneurs can keep it in mind that is to be in a favorable position.
Дорогие друзья, подписывайтесь, и много информации будет по ссылке внизу.
Today we have Bogdan in the studio. Glad to welcome you. Well, Bogdan, I understand that you are a business person, but this story cannot remain in the shadows. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about it. So, please, tell us what happened that caused friction between your pizza franchise business that you lead as the CEO and your American partners. I want to greet all viewers of your channel and tell a story that you at least found interesting. I hope it will be interesting as it is for everyone. We're just getting started, so I'm here for us to outline where we are right now and hopefully watch the development of this journey and this adventure together with our viewers. It's already a new experience for me, which I am interested in learning, and probably a little backstory so that our viewers know which enterprise we are talking about. Little Caesars Pizza is the third largest pizza chain in the world. It is worth mentioning that the company's annual turnover, according to public data, is over $2 billion. Little Caesars Pizza operates in the USA, Asia, the Middle East, Canada, Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, and Asia-Pacific region with overall presence in over 30 countries. So it operates in more than 30 countries and has been on the market for over 60 years. The company was founded by a family and it is not publicly traded, so you don't see their shares. Despite, there is an interesting fact that this family also owns the NHL hockey club Detroit Red Wings, where the famous Russian Five played with Larionov and Fetisov. And our relationship with this enterprise was as follows. So we're a Russian company, we developed this brand in Russia through a franchise ruled by multi-franchise agreement. In 2020, Little Caesars Enterprises presented a beautiful picture to its Russian franchisees of fantastic success in case of cooperation, just like in Hollywood movies. Already then, the American corporation did not hesitate to blatantly lie and manipulate data. The cost of opening pizzerias according to the business plan was significantly underestimated, and a big part of the upcoming expenses was not included at all. And the fact that the Russian franchisee will not have a right to decide even on minor business issues was cunningly concealed. At the beginning of the cooperation, noticing these discrepancies in the financial model and overall business plan, the general director of Little Caesars in Russia, Bogdan Lomakov, has pointed on the mistakes in his letters to the franchisor, which you can see on the screen right now. The Little Caesars franchise itself is quite interesting. It's pretty strict. That is, the franchisor keeps under their control and under their approval practically all key operational aspects, such as logistics chains, like pricing, menus, and various promotional campaigns of the company. So all of this must follow through their approval, and we, as responsible partners, have always followed and are following the franchise agreement strictly within the framework of our rights and obligations, and with respect to all the obligations that we have taken upon ourselves. The reason why Little Caesars Pizza keeps all key business processes under their control is not at all about desire to help its franchisees, but about the brand's sheer greed and corruption. Little Caesars Enterprises forced its Russian franchisees to purchase equipment from an affiliated company in the USA, even though there were 100% analogs on the Russian market.
Часто очень слышал. Ну, там надежнее. А теперь?
Еще больше фактов по данной ситуации вы получите в нашем телеграм-канале.
So we worked closely with the American side, but after the beginning of the well-known events, the situation somewhat changed. First, our American partners, let's say, just disappeared from the radar. Just disappeared from the radar? Yes, that's true. So then tell me, please, how long has this story been in Russia, and when have you joined the company? Actually, I was the first employee of the company. I joined it from stage zero in 2021. It was the middle of the year, so I've been here for, well, just around 2 years. So it wasn't just 2 months ago. No, it was more than that. Before that, there was preparatory work for the Americans to enter the Russian Federation, which took several years. It was a very fundamental approach. They were developing their own technologies for Russia, and people came here to develop products to achieve standards. So they just took and disappeared at first. So let's get back 1 year back to spring 2022. So let's say we are in spring 2022. So they just simply disappeared. So there was silence. So we politely waited, and then we asked, guys, we have a valid franchise agreement which had not been cancelled. It does not contradict any law. So can we move on? And we received an interesting response to that. It sounded somewhat like this: we are sorry, we are no longer authorized to authorize anything new. So, no longer authorized to authorize anything new. We said, well, okay, fine. But according to the franchise agreement, there is a clause that allows the American side to transfer any rights, any obligations, any approval processes to a third party if they wish to do so at any time. So, okay, if you cannot do anything else or authorize anything new, then transfer those rights to us, but they refuse to do so. A franchise agreement is a legal agreement that clearly describes the circumstances when franchisor can transfer its rights to a third party. There's the clause from the contract. Little Caesars Enterprises has the right to assign this agreement and/or any of its rights and privileges under this agreement, and, subject to guarantee, indemnification and acknowledgement, if applicable, to any other physical or legal person without the prior consent of the franchisee. So they identify the problem, but they do not offer solution. So we said, okay, we behave politely and openly, with somewhat of an understanding of some difficulties that our partners may have faced, and with all the understanding, we gave them some time. Okay, so they accept the problem, but they don't want to solve it. So what's next? Well, in fact, it took a few months, and apparently they also didn't know what to do in this situation. So we slowly began to take the reins of management into our hands, because operational activities had to continue, and the decisions we made were only to keep the business moving forward. Bogdan, please tell us, such franchises are not cheap. So how much did you invest so far to make this story work? And the immediate question is, have you already made a return on your investment, or are you still missing cash? Oh, no, not at the moment. We have not yet reached the break-even point, but it is because the company was initially built with such a format that requires investments. Well, our obligations under the franchise agreement to the American side, to the Little Sizar's brand, were to open at least 70 locations in Russia within 7 years. So the organization structure and development model were initially aimed to achieving long-term goals, which requires investment for rapid scaling. So I understand that you bought this franchise and invested money, so how much is that? Well, of course, and the total amount of investments right now equals about $3.5 million. Well, this includes the initial fee and the license fee. That was the fundamental clause to obtain the master franchise for Moscow and Moscow region, which is a significant amount. Also, most of the equipment that we purchased for our restaurants came from abroad. Yes, I have been to your stores. It's very expensive. So it may seem cheap, but let's say an ordinary dough mixer costs $10,000. A rounder, this is a device that turns dough into balls for pizza. $10,000. So the cabinet for storing ready-made pizza, $10,000. So almost everything we have there is $10,000, and ovens are $40,000. So listen, is there a place in your store where you hold these $10,000 bills? A vivid example of how Little Caesar's Pizza make their profit is that they force franchisees to buy a server whose only function is to display static images of products on the menu boards. A flash drive for $10 does an excellent job of solving this task, not the equipment for $10,000. Despite the huge number of analogs on the market, they demanded that servers be purchased from the USA and imported to Russia. At the same time, they could not even provide a license for its components, which led to customs arresting them and not allowing them to country. In the end, we have to solve the problem ourselves. It turned out to be a corruption scheme aimed to obtain a bribe.
Делай то, что он говорит, окей?
Если пойму, я сделаю.
Еще больше фактов по данной ситуации вы получите в нашем телеграм-канале.
So, I understand that you paid $3.5 million that you invested in 2001 approximately. So it's not 200,000 rubles, it's not even 2 million rubles. So you invested $3.5 million. Within the current exchange rate, that's a huge amount of money. Did you at least return something, maybe half of it or 10th piece? Oh, no, of course not. I repeat, we were at the beginning of the investment cycle. Okay, I understand that these circumstances are not only for you, but also for many entrepreneurs, including foreign franchisees. But what I want to say is that there is always a solution. And in this video, I not only want to highlight the problem, but also want to find some solution. because we are always heading to finding this solution and mutually respect it. And Bogdan, we want to hear from you. Do you have any solution scenarios, maybe different ones, such as, let's say, the ideal one, the worst one, and maybe the most hardcore that will blow everything away? Well, before I outline 3 scenarios that I see, let me please briefly explain where we are right now, because I've been heading to this. So, our American partners would like to write everything off, plain apologies, and they say, we're very sorry, the force majeure happened. First of all, no force majeure occurred. Secondly, there is another essential point in our franchise agreement, because they say what? We are sorry, we are under sanctions, which are not introduced by Russian government, but by their government. And they say we can no longer provide any services to you. So, we are sorry, let's forget about everything happened like we had never any relationship. So, it's very interesting. First of all, no force majeure occurred. Secondly, even if force majeure occurred on some obligations, it is written in our franchise agreement that each item is sovereign. Each fragment, section, part, term, and/or provision of this agreement is considered autonomous. And if for any reason a fragment, section, part, term, and/or provision of this agreement is deemed invalid or contrary to any existing or future law or court or institution which has valid jurisdiction on the territory, such determination shall not affect the validity or have any other impact on the other fragments, sections, parts, terms, or provisions of this document or this agreement. So even if our partners cannot fulfill some of their obligations, it does not mean that everything else falls under the force majeure. This means that nothing prevents us from developing brand in Russia. And that's why I'm leading to this, so that our viewers understand where the solution is, which I say 3 of them. And scenario number 1 is we just simply continue to work and we develop the brand in Russia as we are doing right now, because it's not about geopolitics. It's all about the pizza, it's about the customers, quality, speed of service, and it's about the teams. So let's just move forward. Nothing prevents us from doing so. So this is scenario number 1. Can you please clarify, are you also willing to pay royalties and fulfill all the obligations? Absolutely. Despite the fact that our partners irresponsibly refused to fulfill their part of the contract, we are fulfilling it 100% from our side. After the US government imposed sanctions on the Russian banking sector, the Little Sizar's enterprises, in full compliance with the franchise agreement, was immediately notified that the originally agreed method for payment was not available anymore. In this case, according to the franchise agreement, Little Sizar's had to offer an alternative payment method. However, they simply refused to do so, artificially and maliciously creating a situation where they could accuse the Russian franchisees of not fulfilling their obligations. But they didn't stop there, and after a while have sent to Russian franchisee an official letter stating that they own them royalties, marketing fees, and payments for using IT infrastructure. However, the Russian franchisee has never used any IT infrastructure, which Little Sizar's later acknowledged. There is a clause in the franchise agreement stating that in case of bank restrictions, Little Sizar's Pizza should provide alternative paying method. As a matter of fact, when the Ukrainian conflict started, the Little Sizar's Enterprises asked its Russian franchisees to close down stores. But after 2 weeks, when the amount of losses exceeded $56,000, the American side simply ignored this fact.
Еще больше фактов по данной ситуации вы получите в нашем телеграм-канале.
eye for an eye principle would make all planet blind. So I try to fulfill my obligations regardless of how the other person or company behaves. So that was scenario number one. And the second scenario is also very simple. As I told you, our investments and development model initially implied long-term cooperation and scaling of this business. And that was a coordinated strategy of actions with our American partners. So it makes more sense if they want to end our relationship unilaterally, then okay, we understand. But from our point of view, the investments made to implement their strategy should simply be returned to us. We are not trying to make money here. We are just saying that the amount I mentioned to you, which is $3.5 million, which is less than a couple % of the annual turnover of the company, it probably equals the annual bonus of their top managers who now are refusing to fulfill their obligations. So it's all very fair, and we are kind of understanding their situation, saying, okay, then let's part ways, but in a civilized manner. And the third option, which I personally would like to avoid and which we as company would like to avoid, but would be extremely interesting for our viewers, and we will definitely come back and see where it unfolds. The solution is a cool battle in the London court. A clause from franchise agreement states that any claims or disputes arising from this agreement, its conclusion, execution, breach or interpretation, or the relationship between the parties must be finally settled by the arbitration conducted in London, England. But the Russian franchisee feels responsible in front of its employees, who believed a well-known American company and now are in threat of losing their jobs and the only income that they had. By the way, I don't remember if I told you or not, but at one point in my younger ages, I planned to become a lawyer, and I was preparing for this, starting from school, so maybe this chance of my life, and it comes to me. Some viewers did not see our previous interview with Bogdan, where he told us how he skipped classes and ended up in the USA, a very funny story. So, okay, scenario number 3 is possible, but it's a very long way, isn't it? It's a long way, it's expensive, and it also carries significant, maybe for our partners, some, I would say, reputational risks. Oh, well, exactly the same word that I wanted to use, reputational risks that I see. And they're present in different countries, aren't they? Yes, in 30 countries. And 30 countries, and they've just started their global expansion. All potential franchisees, suppliers, and other market participants should be aware of this. Under the guise of a solid network, there are ordinary scammers who, like an ostrich in the movie, hide their heads in the sand when unfavorable market conditions arise. Everyone should think twice whether it's worth dealing with such a franchisor. At the very top of headquarters of this corporation, there are professional frauders who are only focused on their benefit and income.
Еще больше фактов по данной ситуации вы получите в нашем телеграм-канале.
Dear friends, I want to draw your attention to the fact that initially we told you that this brand is a family company where there are great values, morals, quality of work, and everything is very cool. And now the family member called Russia, it's suddenly being cut off, like an appendix, and they won't let them to do business anymore. So they just want to throw us away. And what you can do about this? I don't know. I feel very sad. Well, you talked about the family, but it's not just a family company. Family is really a value within the corporation, which they proclaim as one of the leading principles which they are fundamentally built on. We are family. We have a family relationship inside. That's what they told us, and how it manifests. So it's very easy to be a family when everything is good, but when some difficulties started and they just threw out the child out of the window, what is this? Okay, thank you, Bogdan, for telling this story. Very interesting, and I also believe that this is not how it should be done. As there is a phrase, a friend in need is a friend indeed. So it's similar to family. It also manifests itself in such difficult situation and creates comfort for its responsible members. Absolutely. So if you adopt a child, then you hold responsibility. Absolutely. No matter how the person is, whether it's black or white, it's the matter of responsibility. So, dear friends, you can draw your own conclusions, come up with your own scenarios on how this situation may be resolved, and you can share your opinion in the comments. There will also be some links and probably information about this story below this video. And I will be personally following this story as well, and we'll be doing new videos if we have new information for you. We'll see you later. Thank you, Bogdan, for coming to our studio. See you. Bye. Thank you very much, and see you, all the viewers.